The deadliest thing in the world is not what you think. It's not a disease. It's not a natural disaster. It's not any animal you can name. It's an inventor sitting in a lab, trying to solve a problem, because some of the most devastating weapons in human history weren't built by evil people. They were built by brilliant ones, who genuinely thought their invention was going to save lives. Today, we are breaking down 4 of those inventions, and the people who had absolutely no idea what they were about to unleash. Gunpowder. In 850 AD, a group of Chinese monks were trying to brew a potion for eternal life. They mixed charcoal, sulfur, and a strange white salt, and their lab exploded into flames. They had failed to become immortal. They had accidentally discovered something that would kill hundreds of millions of people. The monks were alchemists. The surviving text from that exact period warned future monks never to mix those 3 ingredients, because too many labs had already burned to the ground. Nobody listened. By the 900s, the Chinese military was packing the powder into clay bombs. Then an unnamed engineer had a different idea. What if instead of attaching the powder to a weapon, you used the explosion to launch one? The first cannons were bamboo tubes packed with gunpowder and rock. Some soldiers refused to operate them. They believed the sound was a demon screaming. Gunpowder reached Europe by the 1300s, and when it did, it ended an entire civilization overnight. The armored knight had been the most dominant military force in the world for centuries. A decade of training, armor worth more than most villages, gone, wiped out in 1 second by a teenager who had never held a weapon before. The entire power structure that Europe had been built on just collapsed overnight. Gunpowder didn't end war. It made war cheaper, faster, and deadlier. By the 1800s, rifles had become so accurate that charging across open ground was basically a death sentence. One man decided he had the answer: the machine gun. In 1882, an American engineer named Hiram Maxim was in London when a friend pulled him aside. "If you want to make a pile of money," the friend told him, "invent something that will let East Europeans kill each other more easily." Maxim did exactly that. In a small London workshop, he designed a gun that never stopped firing. Each bullet's recoil automatically ejected the casing, loaded the next round, and fired again, non-stop, as long as the trigger was held. In 1884, the Maxim gun was complete. 600 rounds per minute, 10 bullets every single second. One person with this weapon could outgun an entire battalion. The British officer saw the test and ordered hundreds on the spot. His logic was clean and completely wrong. The weapon would make attacking so costly that no enemy would dare charge. War, he believed, would become too expensive to start. This theory was first tested in Africa. At the Battle of Omdurman in 1898, 6 Maxim guns faced a Sudanese army of 60,000. In 5 hours, 10,000 Sudanese soldiers were dead. The British lost 48 men. Every European military sent observers. Every single one went home thinking the same thing: build more. Then 1914 arrived. When both sides had machine guns, nobody could advance. The Western Front, 600 miles of trenches, barely moved for 4 years. At the Somme in 1916, the British suffered 57,470 casualties on the first day. The line did not move. The machine gun hadn't ended war, it had frozen it. And the men dying in those trenches were about to become the target of a scientist who thought he had found something worse. Chemical weapons. Fritz Haber won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1918 for saving approximately 1 billion human lives. He was also the father of chemical warfare. In 1909, Haber cracked one of the biggest problems in human history. The world's food supply was capped by how much natural nitrogen existed. Not enough nitrogen meant not enough fertilizer. Not enough fertilizer meant not enough food. Haber figured out how to pull nitrogen straight out of the air. Nearly half the nitrogen atoms in your body right now pass through a Haber plant. Without this man, an estimated 4 billion people would not be alive. Then the war started, and Haber offered everything he had to Germany. His idea: chlorine gas is heavier than air. Release it upwind of enemy trenches and it flows along the ground, pouring straight into the dugouts. There is no running from it, and it doesn't kill fast. It drowns soldiers in their own lung fluid while they're still fully conscious. On April 22nd, 1915, Haber personally supervised the attack at Ypres, Belgium. German forces opened 6,000 cylinders. A yellow-green cloud rolled silently toward the Allied trenches. Most soldiers assumed it was a smokescreen and held their positions. Within minutes, thousands were choking, clawing at the dirt. The gas ripped a 4-mile gap in the Allied line, the largest breakthrough of the entire Western Front. Both sides had gas masks within weeks. Haber escalated to mustard gas, designed to burn through skin and incapacitate rather than kill, because a wounded soldier drained more resources than a dead one. Over 1 million casualties by the end of the war. Haber died in 1934, forced to flee Nazi Germany because they classified him as Jewish. The chemical processes he built for their military were later adapted into a gas called Zyklon B, used in the Holocaust. Several of his own relatives died in those chambers. The man who fed 1 billion people had gassed thousands, and that planted one final question in a new generation of physicists. What if the next weapon didn't work on the surface of matter but inside it? The atomic bomb. In August 1939, a letter arrived at the White House. It was signed by Albert Einstein, but it was written by a physicist named Leo Szilard, a man who had spent years begging scientists not to publish nuclear research, terrified of where it was heading. Now he was reversing course. Germany was pursuing nuclear fission, the letter warned. If they got there first, they could build a bomb of unimaginable power. America needed to start immediately. Roosevelt approved. The Manhattan Project began. 130,000 people worked across 30 sites. Most had no idea what they were building. At Los Alamos, New Mexico, Oppenheimer led the greatest collection of physicists ever assembled, designing a single device that could concentrate more explosive force than every bomb dropped in the entire Second World War. On July 16, 1945, they tested it in the New Mexico desert, the equivalent of 21,000 tons of conventional explosives in one flash. Glass shattered 160 miles away. Watching the mushroom cloud rise, Oppenheimer recalled a line from the Bhagavad Gita: "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." It worked, and immediately the men who built it tried to stop it from being used. Szilard wrote a petition. Dozens of scientists signed it, begging Truman not to drop it on a civilian population. Truman overruled them. August 6, 1945, 8:15 in the morning. A bomb called Little Boy fell over Hiroshima. The city was destroyed in 9 seconds. 80,000 people died instantly. 3 days later, Nagasaki. Japan surrendered. But the bomb didn't end war. Within 4 years, the Soviets had one. Within 2 decades, enough warheads existed to end civilization several times over. There are approximately 13,000 nuclear warheads on Earth today. Here's the thing that connects all 4. Not one of them set out to cause destruction. They were all just trying to solve a problem.